welcome to another how-to video. My name's Oliver Draper, CTO for COP, and what we're looking at today is the HeatPro Turret Camera. In particular, what we're looking at here is perimeter protection, how we set up this camera for an accurate line crossing and intrusion detection on the thermal camera. Okay, so I've got the camera just on the side here, as you can see, pointed over in that sort of general direction, and on my laptop, as you can see on the screen now, I'm at the login page for the camera. Now, this camera is pretty much defaulted out of the box. All I've done so far is I've activated it by giving it a password of my choice, and I've given it an IP address. Other than that, everything else is as standard. As you know, you can do the whole networking things through this SADP tool, where you give it a password and obviously give it an IP address. That has already been done. So, on the main login page there, it's asking me to log in my username and password. So username is always admin, and the password is the password that I gave the device upon activating it. Okay, so let's just log in and take a look. So this should bring me to the live view page. If I just click the play button at the bottom, that should show me both channels. So I've got the optical there on the left-hand side, and I've got the thermal channel on the right-hand side. So again, it is important in noting that this camera does have two channels, one for optical, which is for your identification like you would get on a normal camera, and then you've got the thermal camera as well, which the thermal channel, everyone says, oh, it's just detecting heat. It is to a degree. Technically what it's doing, it's receiving infrared radiation from any object above 0 degrees Kelvin. That's minus 273 degrees Celsius. Now, there's an important thing to note about this as well. Whilst yes, it is heat to a degree, there's two factors we look at when it comes to thermal: reflection and emissivity. So basically how much is emitting radiation or how much is reflecting radiation. So for example, glass has a very smooth, flat surface, therefore that will reflect local environment radiation. So you can't actually see through glass or anything shining like that. And one of the things you could get is thermal reflection. So if you point at a glass and there's something in the reflection of the glass, it will pick up that heat source being reflected off the glass. Despite what Hollywood will tell you, thermal cannot penetrate through walls and glass and things like that. So it's seeing what's being emitted from the surface of that object. So if it's got a coarser, rougher surface, it'll usually have a higher emissivity rating, and you'll get a lot more accurate temperature reading. If it's got a smoother, flatter surface, it'll have a higher reflection rating, so it'll be reflecting the local environment and therefore not emitting what the true surface temperature of that device actually is. So do bear that one in mind. So we've got the optical and we've got the thermal. Now, as I mentioned, this is pretty much defaulted out of the box, so there's a few things that are a bit incorrect at the moment. In particular, the date and time was obviously not correct. We'll look at that in a moment. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to go to configuration at the top. Now, when we go into configuration, it's brought us into the main system settings page. This particular one is a DS-2TD1217-3-QA. The newer ones now, we've got like a 1228. They've got a higher resolution and a better image quality on the thermal channel. But for today's purpose, what we're looking at, this will be absolutely fine. If I go to time settings on the top, as I mentioned, because this is default at the box, it has put it to Beijing, Singapore time. I'm just going to change that to where we are, which obviously we're in GMT, and I'm going to use NTP, Network Time Protocol. This is where it's going to call into, in this case, Microsoft's time server, and set the correct date and time according to what it actually is on a time server. A bit like how your iPhone and other smart device actually work. They talk to a time server out there in the real world, and it updates the date and time automatically. So now I've done that, as you can see there, the device date and time is now synchronized, and that's therefore now correct. They've got other settings across the top. We don't want to go into any details. However, we have got unique settings at the top, and this is what we want our temperature measurement to be and our distance temperature. So again, in the UK, we only go by Celsius. Other countries sometimes go by Fahrenheit. You can go by Kelvin if you want to, but as I mentioned, we're going to go with Celsius today. And underneath our distance measurement, we can go centimeters, meters, or feet, and we'll go with meters for today. So we'll keep it as it is by default out of the box. If we go across on the left-hand side, we've got our maintenance. This is where obviously we can reboot the device, update the firmware, and things of that sort of nature. We've got our logs, system service, and then we have VCA resource type. Now, VCA is video content analysis. So there's two methods we can have this set into. We can do temperature measurement along with perimeter protection. That's your line intrusion, that sort of stuff. That's what we're looking at today. But at the same time, we could have temperature measurement as well. Great. Underneath there, we've got temperature measurement and fire detection. So that's the other VCA resource I can put it to. Now, if I do select that and save it, it will ask the camera to reboot to save that setting. So do note, you cannot do fire detection with perimeter protection. It's either temperature measurement and perimeter or temperature measurement with fire. It's one or the other. Now, this particular camera, whilst it can do temperature measurement and fire detection, the accuracy on the temperature measurement on these ones is plus or minus 8 degrees. So there's potentially a 16-degree tolerance there that it can be out by. That's why it's not recommended to go for this particular model version if you're wanting to get accurate temperature measurement. There is another version of this camera. It has a T towards in the product code, meaning it's a thermography camera. And that will give you a plus or minus of 2 degrees Celsius, so it's a lot more accurate. So for any application where you want to do accurate temperature measurement or fire detection, we do recommend the thermography version that has an accuracy of plus or minus 2 degrees. Now again, on the left hand side as we go down, we've got our security settings like you get on most of your IP cameras. We've got our user management and things of that sort of nature. Again, network, video and audio. If we look at the video and audio, a few things to note in here. So again, don't forget we've got 2 channels. We've got channel 1, channel 2. Channel 1 is the optical, channel 2 is the thermal. So again, we can see the resolution of what our channel 1 is going to be. If we go to our thermal channel, channel 2, we can see again what the resolution for that one is, and so forth. Audio. Again, this camera's got a built-in microphone and speaker, so again, we've got the audio settings there as well if you want to look into them. Region of interest and metadata settings. Now we're going to jump to image settings. Again, a lot of these settings we are skipping to because we're only going to ones that are particularly important for what we're doing today. So in the display image settings, it's very similar to a normal optical camera. Yes, you've got your exposure settings, you've got your day and night time settings, your day and night time switch, your backlight settings for WDR, white light balance, image enhancement, video adjustment, the usual sort of things you get. Now, if I go to channel 2, this is where things are a little bit different. So if you look at image adjustment, pretty similar. We've got brightness and contrast in there. Okay, fair enough. If we go to image enhancement, this is where things change somewhat. So at the minute, we're looking at the palettes, and we can see it's got white hot. So that's telling me anything that's white is hot, anything in black is it's cold. We can do it the way around, where we have it as anything in black is hot and vice versa. And then we've got different palettes you can choose from. Fusion. This is one you see on a lot of marketing campaigns. They use this sort of image there because it gives you very distinctive different colours, and you think, oh yeah, the brighter the colour, the hotter it's going to be, the darker, obviously, the colder. And there's various different ones like Rainbow. We've got Fusion 2. So again, there's many different palettes in which you can choose to, depending on what your application requires. Now, myself personally, I prefer the white hot. For my particular purposes, I can see very distinctively. Obviously, white's very hot, black's cold, and again, I can easily identify what's going on in my scene. I could, if I wanted to, use target coloration. So I could say, okay, tick that tick box. Anything above a certain temperature, let's say anything above 30 degrees, I want it to be in red. So if I click save now, let's have a look what happens. And as we can see, the monitors now that are on the side of the wall, because they're all above 30 degrees, and some of the cameras that are on the counter there, it's marked them as red. So from a visual point of view, just initially looking at the scene, again, not triggering alarms, we're not doing temperature measurement today, but I can just initially look at this and go, okay, those objects there are clearly above 30 degrees because it's highlighted them in red. But you can obviously, of course, tweak this. If I put it to 35 now, does anything change? Yep, okay, some of the things have gone away, but the center of that monitor is above 35 degrees is what it's saying. And you can do the same for colors between and a color below a certain temperature as well. So again, this is something you can play with and choose what you want to set these as. Again, do be cautious when doing this because, again, it is possible that you might actually cause the entire scene to be sort of all one colour. I put it 25 now. As you can see, they're getting the background there now because anything below 25 is getting green. Again, it might not be suitable. So again, it's something you can have a play with and obviously work out what sort of colours you want and what temperature measurements you're wanting to see them as. Okay, we've got things which are digital detail enhancement as well. And we got our video adjustment as well there. Now, it's importantly noted on the thermal channel, you don't get any identification as such. So if I just go to live view, I'm going to put the thermal channel just to full screen so you guys can just see what I look like in the scene on a thermal camera. So let's just go to that one. Let's put that one to full screen. Okay, so if I walk into the scene now, let's just take a look what I look like on a thermal camera. So as you can see, we're not getting any sort of identification, but you can clearly see the outline of a person. but you can't identify who I am. Again, if I just drop this out to full screen for a moment, and we look at the optical and thermal side by side, there we go, a clear differential difference. Okay, let's come out of that. So what can we do to make this more detailed on the thermal channel? Let's take a look. So again, back into our image settings, we've got our on-screen display. We can put the name, date and time of the camera, privacy mask, block out a certain part of the scene, picture overlay, you can upload your own image to overlay on top of the scene. And then we have picture in picture. Now I'm just going to knock this onto the thermal channel just for a moment. So picture in picture mode at the minute is saying normal. In other words, a thermal channel is just receiving the thermal only. But we've got two additional options we can have. We can do details overlay. This is where I can take the optical channel and overlay it on top of the thermal, giving us some more details that are in the scene. Now you've got to set your fusion distance, your stitching distance, because don't forget, because these two lenses are side by side, it needs to know what's the optimum overlay stitching. So I'm going to say, in this case, 2 meters. Now if I click save, let's just watch what happens to this thermal scene now. Okay, so it looks like we've got a bit of details going on there now. Whereas before we weren't getting that. So if I go to live view now, let's take a look now what I look on the optical and see what I look like on the thermal. So as you can see, we're getting a bit more details out of myself now on the thermal channel as well as the optical. Let's see if we can improve that a bit further. So if I go back to configuration, back to picture in picture, select my thermal channel, and now I can do optimize details overview. Let's say 2 meters again, save that, and let's just see what happens. Oh wow, massive dramatic differences there. We can actually see the video footage that's actually on the monitors itself now, because it's using more of the optical channel than it is of the thermal. Let's go to live view and just take a look and see what's going on. Okay, so we look at myself on the optical and on the thermal, and let's see what the distances actually look like. So you get a lot more details out of me on the thermal, but again, you're still getting that heat source as well on there. So it is dependent on whatever you're wanting that to be displayed as. Now myself personally, because I want to see more of the thermal than the optical on the thermal channel, I'm just going to put this onto the details overview, not the optimized one. Okay. And then we also got our VCA rule display as well. This is where you can simply just set the font size and the font color for temperature measurement, which we're not looking at today. We're looking at perimeter protection. Now, if we go down the left-hand side, we can go to event. This is where we've got our normal motion detection, which we can see is currently turned off on the optical. And then we can look at the thermal, and we see it's already turned off on there as well. Right. There's other things we've got as well. We've got our video tampering, alarm input, alarm outputs, exception detections, flashing light output. This is the live guard feature, because don't forget, as I mentioned, the camera has got the system flash a light and sound and audio warning out the camera when something does occur. So the white light mode currently is set to solid, means it's just going to come static and stay solid on. Like I set it to flashing, and then I can set how long it flashes for. Let's go with 5 seconds, and I want it to be a high frequency flash, and then I'm going to put the brightness to 100%. Don't forget below though, because there's no schedule, I need to set the schedule when I want the light in effect. So I'm just going to go with 24/7. So again, you just use your slider and just set that. I'm going to copy that across all days. Click OK, click save. So that flashing light is set for 24/7. Now it might be you only want the light to be on or to come on during the event at certain times on certain days. So you want the event 24/7, yes of course, but you might want the light at certain times and might only want the audio at certain times, but it is up to yourself. If I go to audio output, this is where I can set what I want the audio output to be. Again, how many times it says it and how loud it is and on what schedule. Now there are different ones. There's one for temperature measurement, which is there. So again, a temperature measurement, if I just do a test on that one. Okay, if it's a perimeter protection.
Area.
And then finally, we've also got one for smoking detection, which falls under the fire detection one.
Area.
Now, unlike a conventional live guard optical camera like your color views and things like that, those have up to 10 pre-recorded phrases built into them. This one doesn't. It's one audio phrase built into the camera per VCA option, whether that be food detection, temperature measurement, or the smoking detection. It's only one audio file which is actually available on the camera itself. So you can't change it all around like you would the other ones. However, you have got the option where you can upload your own audio recording to the camera should you wish. But other than that, there's only one pre-selected one that's built into there. Now I'm going to have it to say it once, and again, sound volume put to 100, and as always, we set our schedule of when we want the actual audio to be in effect as well. I click save, copy that across all days, click OK, and click save. Okay. So now I've set how I want the flashing light to behave, I want the audio to behave. Normally when you do a live intrusion and that sort of thing, which we're looking at today, you normally go to Smart Event, but it's not here on this. This is only going to give us things such as our order exception, sudden scene change, dynamics, fire source, stuff like that. It's actually found under perimeter protection of all places. So if I go to there, it's put us onto the thermal channel. Now in order for this to work correctly with the analytic, you do have to tick intelligent analysis at the top before you can do it. So I'll click intelligent analysis at the top, and automatically now it's giving me the step-by-step instructions of how I should configure this. So it's telling me how I create a new rule. I then set a rule name. I set is it a human or vehicle. It then tells me I've got to draw an area into the box. It tells me then I want the effect to be, and then it tells me how to finish it. So again, when you click intelligent analysis, yes, it's turning it on, and it just gives you a quick snapshot of the step-by-step instruction. So intelligent analysis turned on, which is fine. If I go to the right hand side here now, what I'll do, I'll just actually zoom this page out a little bit so it's a bit easier to see exactly what's going on. There we go. Okay, so all I'm going to do is go onto the right hand side here and click the little green plus button there where I can put a new rule in. Give the rule a name, call this one line, and the rule type I'm going to go with line crossing. Now when I've selected that, on the left hand side, the only box which is highlighted is give me the draw line option. I place a line where I want to on my scene. I'll put it just in the middle there, increase the line crossing. And on the right hand side, I can set the sensitivity, anything from 1 to 100. So 1 being the least, 100 being the highest. Now what this means is if I set it to, say, 90% sensitivity, it'll only need 10% of me to go across the line before it triggers. If I set it to, say, 10, it needs 90% of the object to go across the line before it triggers. So it's determined a percentage of how much that object goes across the line. Make it more sensitive, it needs less of the object. To make it less sensitive, it needs more of the object. Is the line crossing direction? Is it A to B, B to A, or bi-directional? In this case, it's bi-directional. But I set it to say, actually, only when I'm going across that way, or I can have it set to say only when I'm going across that way from right to left. But in this case, I'm going to go either direction. What's my detection target? Is it human, human and vehicle, other? Which one am I going to be? I'm going to go with human for today. And my scene mode, I'm just going to go with general. If I do leaves interfered view, that's where you've got leaves sort of moving in the scene, which might cause you false alarms. But in this case, if it's got a general sort of view, it's not looking through leaves or bushes or tree lines or anything like that. If you are doing, you can turn it on, and again, it can help to distinguish the human target between leaves and trees and stuff like that. But in this case, there's no trees in the way, so again, we should be absolutely fine. Save that there. Now, again, as an additional thing to help reduce false alarms, I can filter by pixel size, doing my minimum and maximum size objects. So I say anything smaller than that won't trigger, and anything bigger than that will not trigger. That is an option I could set if I wanted to, but for today, we're not going to worry about it. And my schedule, when do I want this line crossing to be in effect, and my linkage method, what do I want the camera to do. Notify surveillance center, that's notifying the HiConnect app. I can flash the light and do the audio warning as well. So I'll turn those on. And that's more or less good to go. Now, even though I've got one line crossing on there, there's nothing stopping me adding a second rule on here. Intrusion. Intrusion detection. Gives me the box option now. And you can draw your intrusion box on there. Now, once you're doing your intrusion, again, a lot of the settings are very similar. If I go to save that for a moment, go to Miami schedule, I can set different schedules for different rules. So the line is at a certain time, it could be the intrusion does different times, and the linkage method, again, different linkage methods for different rules that you put in place. What I'll do, I'm just going to delete off the intrusion one because we're not interested in that one today. Save. There we go. That has now gone. Shield region. This is where I can block out a certain part of the scene if I don't want the analytic to be looking anywhere in that part of the scene. What do I want on the overlay and capture? Display the information on the actual stream. Yep. I can even display trajectory. That will draw a line behind me with the last route that I took. If I turn on the trajectory, I can say, show me the line behind me from 10 seconds, 20 seconds, or 30 seconds. So it shows the route the person took before they triggered that event. That is an option you can have turned on. So let's go to live view. There we go. Got my line crossing now on the actual scene itself. Let's go to full screen. Let's just trigger the event and see how this actually behaves. What? So there we go. I'm getting the warnings restricted area, and I was getting the flashing light output on the camera as well. So very simple and easy for your intrusion detection and line crossing. What we'll do, we'll just turn that trajectory on and let's just see how the trajectory side of it actually works. Say put it to 20 seconds. Let's save that. Go to live view. Now I am a bit close up to the camera and walking in there. It is ideally designed for where you get the entire person in the scene. Obviously you're only going to see the top part of my body. But again, we should still get a trajectory line somewhere on the scene. So let's give that a go. So we did get that line appearing right at the bottom of the scene. As I mentioned, ideally it's designed for where you're seeing the entire target in the distance and you can see the line that route actually took. In this case, it was drawing the line at the bottom where the target was, which is just at the bottom of the scene because it was only getting the top part of me there. So there we go, everyone. That is how you set up an accurate line intrusion box on the Hikvision Thermal HeatPro cameras. Fairly straightforward, as you probably agree. You just draw your line intrusion box in place, set your linkage action, very similar to what you get on an optical camera. In my opinion, though, the accuracy on these ones is a lot better than what you get on a standard optical camera. Even in my opinion, outweighs a deep-in-mind NVR. Again, don't forget, because it's using thermal technology, it's able to penetrate through poor light, bright light, weather conditions. Even if someone's walking between tree lines and things like that, it will still pick the person up. So these are absolutely brilliant for your advanced perimeter protection. If you are interested in this product, go to the description below. The link is in there. You can read about the products in the datasheet. As always, if you did like the video, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you hit that bell icon, you'll be alerted to upload any new videos.